Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm really excited to share with you another deck list video. This one is in devotion to the goddess Artemis. This is going to be all the decks that I've been really enjoying working with her with, and I do have some honorable mentions. These are decks that I've worked with her with, like, specific aspects of her. I would say a couple of months back, like I've mentioned on the channel, I felt really called to doing dream work. So this was actually an aspect of Artemis that I think would be maybe aligned more with her lunar aspects. Full transparency, I'm more drawn to the wild woman archetype aspect of her, the warrior aspect of her, the nature-focused wilderness, nature goddess aspect of Artemis than the lunar aspect. But I have had some encounters with it, and as I've mentioned on the channel before, I did feel a calling to shift my work with her, my focus with her on dream work. So this is an aspect that I haven't had very much experience with because, again, I'm more called to the nature aspect of her, the wild, the wilderness aspect. But I did acquire the Moondust Tarot. So this was on my wish list for a very long time. It was something that I kind of went back and forth on. You know, I'm a Scorpio rising. I'm more drawn to the moody, kind of darker aesthetic when it comes to my decks. And this one has this really dreamy, ethereal energy to it. So it was perfect for doing dream work. So I did purchase that. Well, I purchased this deck for dream work. And again, it's something that I don't have very much experience with. Again, I'm more drawn to her wild wilderness nature aspect. That's why it's an honorable mention. I can't remember if I mentioned this is going to be like my decks that are very involved with my practice with Artemis at the moment. So as you can see, the color palette is purple, pink, and blue. So it's very dreamy, very ethereal. That type of energy that just goes really well with lunar goddesses. The other deck that is also an honorable mention that it goes with that dream work aspect of her that I experienced is the Dreamgate Oracle. So this is a Daniel Noel deck. So this one I really enjoyed pulling for dream work. So I would pull a card and then I would go to sleep, and then I would use this card as something to kind of focus on when I would journal about my dream the next day. So that's Dreamgate Oracle. My last honorable mention is the Lioness Oracle. So Artemis is historically represented as being associated with wild animals such as wolves, deer, but she's also depicted in some ancient statues carrying or holding wildcats. So I purchased this deck to work with that aspect of her. So wildcats to me are associated with sexual sovereignty and feminine power. So This isn't one that I've had a lot of experience with. I haven't really felt called to reaching for this deck much at this point, which is why it's an honorable mention. Again, I did purchase this to work with that aspect of her, to explore her association with wildcats. So I do feel that this deck is going to be one that I pull more towards like warmer once it starts getting warmer here. So I'm in Canada and we've been experiencing really crazy weather. It's been like it's been cold again. In a nutshell, it's been really cold again. It's dark and it's cold and we've been getting snow. So I do feel that this is going to be a deck that I pull out once it starts to get warmer. This is going to be a warm spring, summer deck. I'm hoping maybe towards May it'll be nice enough for me to actually feel called to pulling this deck out and exploring those aspects of Artemis. But we are still very much exploring. I mentioned quite a while back, like when she first appeared to me, I was experiencing this association to winter and Artemis. Like there was something that she really wanted me to explore with winter. I discovered it was about survival, resilience. Here's the backing. It's beautiful. This is an independently produced deck, by the way. The other two are not, that I showed you on the earlier in this video. But this is definitely something, again, that I feel like I'm probably not really going to reach much for this deck until it gets warmer out. I have worked a little bit with the deck. It has this interesting cosmic energy. It's not just like wildcats. It has this very Empress kind of cosmic energy to it. That's really interesting to explore as well. However, I haven't really worked with the deck very much, so I want to reserve my opinions on the deck until I really get to know her. So now we're going to get into the actual deck list. So I'll save the last two decks that you guys know are going to be on this list. They're like my daily draw decks. I'll save that for last. But these are the decks that I feel, to me, they work best with my practice with Artemis. And there are some more lunar energy decks here, so we'll get those quickly out of the way. And then the rest is really nature focused. So early on in my practice with Artemis, there was a call to explore social work, to explore shadow work. And I felt really called to working with my Nova Witch Tarot. So this has a lunar kind of dreamy energy to it. It's a lot of pastel colors. And then there's the black and white imagery. And then there's pops of color, as you'll see. It does have this energy of the archetype of the witch within it. It is the Nova Witch Tarot. I like the simplicity of the imagery, and I found it connected me to my intuition very easily. I was able to channel messages from Artemis fairly well using this deck. It has a maiden energy to it too, which works well with Artemis. Although I do see her more as the archetype of the wild woman than the maiden, but I could go on and on about that. This was one that I greatly enjoyed earlier in my practice with her. Just when I was just getting to know her and exploring her energy and her messages. Another one that I really enjoy, I I line this deck as kind of having this hanged man energy. It has this in-between energy. And Artemis is a lunar goddess. I do feel that she bridges the gap between the wild and like sophistication really well. Not only is she this maiden archetype, this wild woman, this huntress, and she's, you know, they called her, the ancient Greeks called her the mistress of the wild. She's a nature goddess, essentially. But she's also an Olympian. So I feel that this deck was excellent at bridging gaps, similarly to the way that she does. And a lot of lunar goddesses too, like they do kind of occupy that liminal space. So the Nova Witch Tarot that I just showed you, as well as this one, which is called the Soul Mirror Oracle, they're both created by the same artist.
Yeah, use your words. Yeah, good job. You can't watch yourself from there. You gotta go feed separately.
So again, this is called the Soul Mirror Oracle. Next, the Lantern Oracle. So I was really enjoying shadow work with this deck alongside Artemis. It's a beautiful deck. This deck is really great for a lot of different lunar goddesses, not just Artemis. I also work with Hecate with this deck. This is an excellent deck for shadow work. The guidebook is really good. It's very helpful. I would recommend some kind of a journaling or recording practice with this deck. Okay, again, this is the Lantern Oracle. This is a mass market. I forgot to also mention the last two, the Soul Mirror and the Nova Witch Tarot, also mass market. The Bloodlands Oracle, so I purchased this to work with Artemis very early on. This deck is an excellent journeying deck, so I would pull a card as a landscape to explore with Artemis. And I do have a tarot Oracle spread that I wish to share using this deck. It's going to be a part of an Artemis workshop, however. So I'm going to save that for that workshop. However, this is an excellent deck for exploring landscapes, different environments with Artemis. Of course, it really does speak to that wilderness aspect of Artemis, that wild aspect of Artemis. And then you also kind of get this, what I noticed when I would do this journey work with her is I noticed that she would become the environment. And then you get this feeling that she's protecting you as you explore this inner landscape. Just my personal experience and practice with her. So this is the Bloodlands Oracle mass market. Look at the edging. Magick of You Oracle, again, really speaking to that wild nature aspect of the goddess. This is it's a very spiritually supportive deck. One of the things when she first stepped in to work with me, one of the things that she really targeted was me working on feeling more confident with my spiritual gifts. Like, to me, this deck is all about spiritual sovereignty. And of course, this deck really wanted to step up in my work with her. It's how I figured out one of the reasons why she was here. This deck is by Fiona Horn. It's mass market. Again, it's called Magick of You Oracle. Okay, I'm just gonna have a quick sip of water. Loputyn Oracle was, again, another deck that I worked a lot with her early on, along with the Bloodlands Oracle. So this deck, so one of her key symbols when she first came in was wolves. Winter, of course, like survival, resilience, strength, as well as wolves. Wolves, of course, are closely linked to the moon, to the goddess. I was really drawn to all the imagery of her with wolves. And I want to go more into the symbols, and the reasonings behind like why I was so drawn to all these different symbols in the workshop. However, I did find this deck to be super helpful with dealing with a lot of the self-confidence issues that I was having at the time, and reclaiming my wild, which is one of the most just perfect ways to work with her, is really reclaiming the wild within you. Like the Strength card, really bringing those aspects of you back into balance. Woodland Wardens is an excellent deck for, again, really working with the Mistress of the Wild, Mistress of Animals aspect of Artemis. And then you have the botanicals as well, which is, you know, a beautiful addition. So it sort of marries those two aspects of Artemis together really beautifully. The artwork is so beautiful. It's a very sweet deck. Great general purpose deck. You can also work with the animals too in this deck as additional meanings, which is, well, it's one of the reasons why I really like to work with this deck. As well as for symbolism, you know, especially if you keep seeing a repeated animal. It could be the goddess reaching out to you. So this, again, is Woodland Wardens, Mass Market. So my last two decks are, of course, not going to be a surprise to you. The Wild Woman Rising Oracle, I believe it's called, Mass Market. It has been such a joy to have with my work with Artemis. It's just been an excellent clarifier, general purpose. I've been using this deck along with another one that's also on the deck list as daily draws, and they've just been very supportive of my path, of me. This card drives me crazy. The woman is blurry, but then you can kind of see the spider a bit, but the artwork's not my favorite. I've shared that on the channel, but I do like the energy of the deck. It has this judgment, like awakening energy to it. It feels really raw, primal. Again, it's the wild woman rising. So again, I've been really enjoying this deck working with Artemis. It's been just such a pleasure to have in my work with her, for my practice with her. It's been clarifying the next deck on my list very well. So this is the Tarot of the Huntress. It's been just clarifying this deck really well, and I do think that the colors go really well together as well. I find the colors to be very complementary. You guys know I have like a glamour beauty ritual So I do like to look at the colors, and I like to incorporate what I see in the cards in my makeup. So I've been enjoying that aspect of these two decks and how beautifully they flow. So this deck is essential to my work with Artemis. It's nice. It's like I have a direct line to the goddess with this deck. One of you, wonderful viewers, brought to my attention an oracle deck that uses a lot of the images from this deck. It's the pre-Raphaelite artwork of Artemis. There's an oracle deck that exists. And I'm kind of tempted to purchase it. I'm just not sure if I'm gonna like the repeated imagery. I'm very much contemplating right now picking that deck up, but I do like this deck. I like the artwork. I like the pre-Raphaelite artwork. I find it very beautiful. And I like that you get, both the lunar aspects of Artemis as well as her nature aspects. The wild, all the different animals. There's deer, bears. Of course, if you work with Artemis, she's associated with those animals very closely. So this deck is the Tarot of the Huntress. This is a independently produced deck, and the one that I showed you before that, Wild Woman Rising, is a US Games deck, so it's mass market. I forgot to mention also a newer development is I've been feeling called to working with the Queen Mab Oracle with Artemis. And previously, prior to my work with Artemis, this was a very Lilith deck for me. I don't work with the Fae. I don't work with Queen Mab herself either. I don't think I work with any Celtic pantheon gods or goddesses. I did have an experience with Caradwyn last year, I think winter. But other than that, I haven't really worked very closely with the Celtic pantheon. However, I've recently felt called to working with this deck with Artemis. And what I've been asked to do is to pull a card for the week. And this deck is all about empowerment, sovereignty, setting boundaries, and really just coming into your strength, your power. So for me, this deck is really about standing your ground, being true to who you are, and being strong in who you are as well. And this is a deck that I feel like I very much need in my practice right now with Artemis. And this deck has been really helpful for me for really setting boundaries and just being okay and comfortable and showing my strength. Of course, not exercising my power over others, but not being afraid to stand up for myself. Almost having that quiet confidence. Like that soft strength. So again, this is the Queen Mab, or you might know it as the Queen Mab Oracle. And it's become like it's become a very important aspect of my practice with her. So this is my updated working with Artemis decks. So I already have an older video when she first came in, exploring the decks that I was called to working with her at that time. So this is going to be an updated, expanded upon decks, I guess, practice with Artemis decks video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you got something out of it, and I hope that your practice, if you have a practice with Artemis, is going well. Let me know in the comments section below if you do have a practice with her and what decks you like to use. I'm always curious to know what you guys are using with the same gods and goddesses. So it's really interesting to me. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.